The doctors called it a massive stroke. I called it the prelude to the cruelest joke of my life. While I lay in the ICU, relearning how to speak, my wife, Olivia, wasn't by my side. She was busy emptying every cent from our joint accounts, leaving a curt email. "You're too much baggage now. Enjoy the hospital food." The total, over 85,000, our entire life savings, retirement, everything gone. My first coherent word wasn't mom or help. It was a garbled, rage-filled attempt at her name. I remember the sheer helplessness, tubes snaking into me, one side of my body a stubborn, unresponsive weight. My mind, the librarian's mind I prided myself on, was a fog of disbelief and a searing, cold anger. I managed to jab a trembling finger at my phone to text my sister, Chloe. "Olivia. Gone. Money too. Need you." She was there within the hour, her face a mask of horror and determination. For the next 2 days in that sterile room, she was my rock, while Olivia was already a ghost, a very rich ghost. Looking back, the warning signs were there, like overdue books, silently screaming for attention. Olivia's phone became an extension of her hand, always angled away from me, her screen dimming quickly if I walked by. "Our finances," she'd wave a dismissive hand. "You handle the boring stuff, Ethan. You're good at all that cataloging." She even started decluttering, with a vengeance months before, claiming a sudden passion for minimalism. Small valuables, things I hadn't inventoried in my mental collection, disappeared. I'd shrugged it off. Stress. My biggest foresight, or rather, a quirk of my profession, was my meticulous personal record keeping. After a colleague at the library went through a messy divorce years ago, I'd quietly started keeping separate spreadsheets of major expenses and savings, an archival review of our financial life, stored on a private cloud. I also remembered updating my will and power of attorney the year before, prompted by a health scare. Chloe was listed as secondary if Olivia was unavailable or unwilling. I joked with the lawyer then, just in case she runs off with a handsome lumberjack. The irony was a punch to my already battered gut. One particular detail surfaced from the fog, Olivia asking casually about my pension payout details just weeks before, claiming she was trying to understand our future better. I was such a fool. I met Olivia at a university alumni mixer. I was there promoting the library's adult literacy program. She was with a friend, looking bored. I, the quiet branch manager, somehow charmed her with a quote from Neruda. Or maybe she just saw a stable, if unexciting, future. We married within a year. I was 33, she 30. It felt right then. Early on, she seemed to appreciate my steady nature, my love for books and quiet evenings. She'd even read some of my recommendations, discussing them with surprising insight. We built a comfortable life, a small haven filled with stories, or so I thought. Our backgrounds were different. My family valued education and quiet contribution, teachers, civil servants. Hers were more about appearances, small business owners who prized a flashier lifestyle. Olivia worked part-time at a high-end boutique, a job that seemed more about accessing discounts than building a career. She always wanted a bit more than my librarian's salary could comfortably provide. Our home was modest but well kept, in a decent neighborhood. I remember her once wistfully looking at our neighbor Mark Jennings' newly renovated kitchen, all granite and stainless steel. "He knows how to live," she'd sighed. At the time, I dismissed it as a fleeting comment. My professional life revolved around community programs, budget meetings, and the endless pursuit of funding for new book acquisitions, terms like collection development, defining my days. It was fulfilling for me, but I see now how it must have seemed stagnant to her. The distance grew subtly, like dust settling on unread volumes. Communication dwindled from shared thoughts to logistical necessities. "Did you pay the gas bill?" Replaced, "How was your day?" Her outings with new friends I never met, became more frequent. She'd scoff when I talked enthusiastically about a successful author event at the library or a new digitization project. "More dusty old books, Ethan." The shared silences became heavy, pregnant with unsaid resentments. The turning point, though I didn't recognize it then, was during our 15th anniversary dinner. I'd booked her favorite restaurant. She spent most of the evening texting, then looked up and said, "Mark's redoing his entire backyard. Water feature, the works. Says it'll add thousands to his property value." Her focus was so clearly elsewhere. It wasn't just a comment, it was a comparison, and I came up short. The betrayal, when it came, wasn't a sudden storm but the final collapse of a long, rotted structure. Back in the rehab facility, learning to use my left hand for everything, the initial shockwaves of Olivia's treachery began to subside, replaced by a cold fury. My first investigation was purely mental, replaying recent months, her averted gazes, her sudden late nights, working inventory. Chloe, my angel of a sister, had brought my personal laptop. With her help navigating the keyboard initially, I accessed my private cloud. There it was, my meticulous, archival review of our finances. I started cross-referencing. Dates of large, unexplained ATM withdrawals from the joint account, always just under reporting limits, lined up with her girls' weekends. Then, a text from our other neighbor, old Mrs. Henderson, forwarded by Chloe. Ethan, dear, hope you're better. Odd thing, saw Olivia with Mark Jennings loading boxes into his truck last week. Looked like your good china, Mark, the friendly neighbor with the fancy kitchen. My blood ran cold. Another piece, a half-shredded credit card statement I'd found in Olivia's desk drawer a month before the stroke, one I didn't recognize the bank for. I dismissed it then. Now, it screamed secret account. Each new piece of information was a fresh stab, anger mixing with a sickening clarity. This wasn't an impulse, this was a goddamn conspiracy. I finally confided the full extent of what I was uncovering to Chloe. We sat in the small, private room the rehab facility provided. She planned this, Chloe, with Mark. My sister, a pragmatic elementary school teacher used to managing chaos, just squeezed my good hand. Then we planned too, Ethan. You're a librarian. You find information. You organize it. Let's do that. Her daughter, Maya, my niece, was a second-year law student, Chloe called her. Maya arrived that evening, eyes blazing with youthful indignation on my behalf. Uncle Ethan, tell me everything. She listened, took notes like a seasoned professional. Banks of records, Uncle Ethan. If she opened new accounts, moved large sums, there's a trail. My internship next semester is with a firm that does financial forensics. I know some databases we can legally check with your permission. Her words were a balm, a spark of hope. Family, true family, was my anchor. With Maya's guidance, we started a more formal due diligence. She helped me draft a letter authorizing her to make inquiries on my behalf, citing my medical incapacitation. Bank records started trickling in. The joint account drained. But then, Maya, using access to a public records database she learned about in a class, found something. Olivia had opened a new, sole proprietor business account 3 months before my stroke. Vintage Home Decor, it was called. Laughable. Its transaction history, once subpointed, showed a series of large deposits, many corresponding to the dates I was away at library conferences. It also showed significant payments to Mark Jennings' landscaping company for consulting services. The pieces were clicking into place. My meticulously kept personal finance spreadsheets, showing my consistent income against her sporadic, small earnings, painted a clear picture of whose money this really was. This was systematic, calculated. My inner librarian, the one who abhorred misinformation and sought truth, was now fully engaged. It was no longer just about being a victim. It was about reclaiming my story, my resources, and my dignity. The shift inside me was palpable. The initial helplessness and profound grief for my lost marriage morphed into a steely resolve. The betrayal was a fire, but instead of consuming me, it forged something harder in my core. This wasn't just Olivia leaving me. This was grand larceny intertwined with emotional cruelty of the highest order. I would not let her or Mark get away with it. My mind, clear now, began to catalog every injustice, every lie, every stolen dollar. Armed with a growing pile of evidence, meticulously organized by Maya and me, I instructed Chloe to find the best damn divorce lawyer in the city. She found David Wright, a man with a reputation for being a shark in a well-tailored suit. Our first meeting was in his office, a space as organized and formidable as he was. I laid out my files, bank statements, timelines, Maya's research into the shell company, Mrs. Henderson's informal testimony. Wright listened, his expression unreadable. Mr. Miller, he finally said, tapping a perfectly manicured finger on the file detailing the ICU account draining. This isn't just a messy divorce. This is financial exploitation of a vulnerable adult, possibly conspiracy to defraud. Her timing, while you were medically incapacitated, is legally poisonous for her. He outlined a strategy: file for divorce immediately, petition for an emergency freeze on all known assets, and begin aggressive discovery. For the first time in months, a grim satisfaction settled in me. And Mr. Wright moved fast. The initial consultation focused on the clear-cut financial exploitation. Olivia, he explained, might claim a right to joint funds, but doing so while I was non-compos mentis and immediately after a life-altering medical event reeked of malice and opportunism, factors the court would scrutinize. Our core strategy was to highlight her calculated deception during my period of extreme vulnerability. We'll use her own greed against her, Wright stated, a glint in his eye. He was already preparing motions, his legal assistant typing furiously. The breakthrough came a week later. Maya, during her internship, learned about specific search parameters for inter-bank transfers that often flagged suspicious activity. With my explicit, legally documented consent funneled through Wright's office, she ran a search linked to Olivia's new business and Mark's company, Bingo. A series of structured deposits into an offshore account under a holding company Mark had established years ago. Small amounts, frequently, clearly designed to avoid detection. Over 50 Zalozen had been funneled there in 6 months. The records also showed plane tickets to the Cayman Islands, booked in both their names, for the week after Olivia had emptied our accounts. They were planning to disappear. Seeing the stark black and white of their escape plan, the cold, hard proof, I felt a surge of rage, quickly followed by a chilling sense of validation. This wasn't just about the money, it was about the audacity, the sheer, calculated cruelty. Justice didn't just feel possible, it felt inevitable. My librarian's instinct for order, for facts, had led us here. The scale of their Yin Mozwas Namadu conspiracy was far bigger than I'd imagined. Mark wasn't just a lover, he was the architect of the financial escape route. Olivia was the inside woman, using her knowledge of my routines and finances. My research skills, honed over decades in the library, went into overdrive. I cross-referenced Mark's company registrations, his known associates, even old social media posts. A picture emerged of a man always looking for an angle, with a history of questionable business partners. The offshore account wasn't new, it was his bolt hole, now opted for their joint venture in Betrayal. My sense of urgency intensified. We weren't just dealing with a cheating spouse, we were dealing with seasoned defrauders. Mr. Wright filed the lawsuit and an emergency motion to freeze Olivia's known assets, Mark's business accounts, and specifically requested an injunction against them leaving the country, citing the offshore transfers and flight bookings as evidence of flight risk. The paperwork, meticulously compiled and cross-referenced, was damning. It didn't take long for them to react. A few days after the papers were served, I received a hysterical call from Olivia. "Ethan, what are you doing?" "We can sort this out. Don't be like this." Her voice was a mix of feigned concern and barely concealed panic. Mark, true to his weaselly nature, tried a different tack, sending a vaguely threatening letter through a cheap lawyer claiming harassment. Mr. Wright handled it all with cool disdain. "Standard playbook for the desperate," he remarked. The preliminary hearing for the asset freeze was tense. Olivia and Mark were there, looking pale and decidedly less smug. The judge, a stern-faced woman named Henderson, no relation to my neighbor, thankfully, reviewed Wright's brief, her eyebrows arching higher with each page. Mark's lawyer blustered about legitimate business expenses, and Olivia's lawyer whined about marital misunderstandings. Mr. Wright then played his ace. "Your Honor, we have evidence of a joint plan to flee the jurisdiction. Flight tickets, an established offshore account." He then detailed Maya's findings about the transfers to Mark's Cayman account. He had also, on a hunch, hired a private investigator for a single day, who had discreetly filmed Olivia and Mark having a very public, very heated argument in a mall parking lot 2 days prior, Mark clearly berating Olivia for messing everything up. The video, silent but eloquent, showed them as a desperate, bickering couple, not a grieving wife and a concerned friend. The judge watched, her expression grim. The judge's decision was swift and brutal for them. Given the defendant's actions while Mr. Miller was incapacitated, and the compelling evidence of intent to transfer assets offshore and potentially flee, I am granting the plaintiff's motion in full. All specified assets of Ms. Hayes and Mr. Jennings are frozen. Passports are to be surrendered to this court within 24 hours. A temporary restraining order is also in place preventing Mr. Jennings from contacting Mr. Miller. Olivia let out a small gasp. Mark looked like he'd swallowed a rock. I felt a wave of grim triumph. The system, often slow, could also be a powerful instrument of justice when presented with well-cataloged facts. The full investigation, spurred by the asset freeze, laid bare their entire scheme. Olivia had been siphoning funds for over a year, using the business as a front to funnel money to Mark, who then moved it offshore. They'd planned to sell Mark's house, drain what was left of my money, and start a new life in the sun, leaving me broken. The final reckoning in court was almost an anticlimax. The divorce was finalized quickly. The judge, incensed by their blatant deceit, awarded me the house, which was solely in my name after refinancing Olivia had conveniently been too busy to attend. 70% of the traceable joint assets recovered from their frozen accounts, and a significant portion of Olivia's business account, which the court deemed marital property fraudulently concealed. Mark faced separate charges for fraud related to his business practices, kicked off by our investigation. Olivia got her car, a fraction of what she'd stolen, and a future colored by her own greed. I sold the house 6 months later. Too many ghosts. I bought a smaller, accessible condo near Chloe and Maya. The decision to leave the library branch I'd managed for 15 years was harder. My physical recovery was ongoing. The stroke had left me with a slight limp and less stamina. But my mind was sharp. I took on a consultant role with the city library system, focusing on digital archiving and grant writing, less public-facing, more intellectually challenging, and allowing me to work from home more. Archival review. had taken on a new meaning in my life. My new life was quieter, more deliberate. My days were filled with a different kind of collection development, building new routines, reconnecting with old friends, discovering a passion for adaptive gardening. The unexpected harvest came when a disability insurance policy I'd paid into for years and forgotten kicked in, providing a steady income supplement. It wasn't a windfall, but it was a cushion, another layer of security Olivia hadn't known about and couldn't touch. I used a portion of the settlement to help Maya with her law school tuition. "You've got a brilliant legal mind, kiddo," I told her. "You helped an old librarian find justice. Imagine what else you'll do." Seeing her excitement, knowing I was investing in a future dedicated to upholding the law, brought a profound sense of peace and purpose. It felt like closing a chapter not just in my life, but in the broader story of right and wrong. Sometimes, I'd catch my reflection, a little grayer, a little leaner, but my eyes clearer. The anger was gone, replaced by a calm pragmatism. I was no longer just Ethan Miller, the betrayed husband. I was Ethan Miller, the survivor, the rebuilder. I heard through the grapevine that Olivia was working retail again, this time in a discount store miles away. Mark was tangled in legal battles. Their grand escape had imploded. The final lesson, cataloged and filed away in my mind: life can strip you bare, but what you choose to rebuild and how defines your truest self. Some stories have painful chapters, but they don't have to define the ending.